Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cyka to Stalin. Um, excuse my shitty Russian accent, but yeah. So this is the fifth episode. I'm sorry it's been such a delay since the last one. I have had to work away from home quite a lot over the last couple of weeks, and it's just really hurt my ability to play and record. And then when I have been recording, I haven't necessarily been putting out games that really I've learnt very much from. I think a lot of what I've been doing recently is just learning from. It's almost like a control perspective. Just getting better and better at microing and paying attention to different things on different sides of the maps, retreating properly, choosing my engagements properly, lots of simple things. And it sort of has accumulated into this game, which I think is actually, shows some pretty good play, but also shows some downfalls that need improving on, and basically the latest stage of my learning. So we're on Minsk Pocket. We're against a Wehrmacht Hanna. I looked after the game. He's about 100 ranks below me. And I'm hovering around 470 now, level 11. And let's just pause. I was really happy with this engagement because recently against Wehrmacht I've been losing out horribly to their machine guns, where they just set them up and I'm completely unable to deal with them. And here I kind of finally reacted properly to it in the early game and didn't get totally messed over by them. So let's just look at my build to start off with. I've gone for 3 conscripts, and I've then teched immediately to Molotovs, which is nearly just about done by the 2-minute mark. And I kind of spread myself out. So I've kept my engineer reasonably close to home. I don't like to move them beyond the sort of my side of the map, as it were. I like them to take initially my cutoff that leads to my fuel, and then I'll get them to double back and take, for example, like the victory point here, that strategic point there, just stuff that's really easy so that I can then get them back to base quickly and get them to build my support weapon Campanea or whatever other tech I'm going for. I've got my 3 conscripts out. I sent one over here, and in the early game I just wanted to keep them spread really for the express purpose that when a machine gun came down, I wanted to have as much sort of potential space around it occupied so that I could collapse in on it. So let's just have a look at how this fight goes down. I pull back because even though I had some cover, I wasn't going to beat those Grens or the Pioneers. I hadn't seen the machine gun at this point, but I managed to get away without taking any model losses. My second squad of conscripts comes in here, and the third one has collapsed in from the right there, and he's just immediately forced to retreat his MG, and his Grens have taken some damage. And then I'm quite happy to leave my conscripts here to force those Pios off to his side of the map. And end result of this is he's had to do something that's really uncomfortable and just retreat all of his forces off the map. So I can pretty much capture freely at this point. And so the first thing I thought of doing was going for his fuel. And actually, I hadn't realised this, but it's a pretty good decision because he hadn't even captured his cutoff to his fuel yet. So just being able to harass this and take it out of his hands means that he hasn't had fuel for like the first good bit of the game. And then while I was capping, the VP got capped, so I was able to bring down my next squad of conscripts. They're both in pretty good cover here, so I'm happy to take that fight. And you'll see that with the Molotov, I'm able to wring quite a lot of value out of them, even though they were pretty injured in the first place. So knocking out nearly an entire squad of Grens there is a really nice pick. My other squad of conscripts there, I had them up capping in this direction, and I bought them off capping this point, ran them across with the Ura, and have got them to flank the MG, which is just paramount. And they can also drop the molly on it, of course, which is just going to do damage. And, the manpower cost that the Germans, broadly speaking, have to incur to replace their units is much higher than Soviets. So as long as you're not losing squads or like losing 6 men for every one of theirs, then, these trades are always pretty advantageous. However, this was a little bit, I'm not sure about the decision I made here. I retreated my engineers after they capped all of this kind of left portion of the map because I wanted them to build my tech. but it just left me with absolutely nothing on the map, and I was worried that he was going to take some ground off me or maybe hit my fuel. But actually, in order to be as aggressive on my fuel as he was in the first instance, it's sort of he hasn't captured all of this kind of pocket resources on his side of the map, so it wasn't too bad of a choice. But really, I don't want to in future have to retreat everything off the map at once. If I can just leave 1 or 2 squads behind in some green cover, then that's always going to be a better way to do it, I think. So support weapon Campaneer comes out. I've picked guard rifle combined arms because it's just the one that I'm most sensible with. I think I can get a lot of value out of all of its facets apart from the mortar, which the howitzer. However, I think I could learn to incorporate that somehow. So here again, I'm just using the good 1-2 punch of the machine guns are scary, of course. They do a lot of damage, but if you keep your guys in cover, particularly green cover, they can stay in front of a machine gun and take no damage for a long old time. And again, you just force it to retreat. I bought my own MG out here, and I think that's really important, honestly, because even with vet guards, the grenadiers later on in the game, when they've got their MG42 upgrades and they've got their rifle grenades, they're just really scary. They'll cut guards to pieces, cut conscripts to pieces. I think investing in a machine gun, maybe not this early in the game, I'm still playing around with that, but having a machine gun against Wehrmacht is, really, really useful, just because it levels out that infantry advantage, because you can suppress large groups of their infantry and hopefully take less losses on your side. I probably should have retreated here. I don't know why I was just running away. I could have saved myself a model at about half that squad's health, but no matter. But again, yeah, I've got my MG out, and I've been much more responsible recently with building the sandbag fighting positions with the conscripts, because conscripts just do, all infantry do, but conscripts particularly just do so much better in green cover. And with the MG there, you can see that we can push those units off. He gets his MG42 up, but with a quick Ura, you can actually, say you're halfway in the middle, you can usually get out of his arc of fire before he can suppress you, and then he's vulnerable to Molotovs, that kind of stuff. And also, obviously, it helps that my Maxim's cutting him up there. So just looking more broadly at the map, I've called in some guards, I had enough munitions to give them the DP straight away, and I've been using my engineers to cap and my sort of spare squad of conscripts over here to cap into his side of the map, take away his munitions, that sort of stuff. So again, I'm keeping it right in his face and able to harass his fuel again, and I just, my feeling is always just take the fuel off the Germans, because their tanks are so scary. So he's chosen Spearhead Doctrine and gone for the 257 mortar half track, which actually is really good. Wehrmacht mortars in generally are just a fantastic piece, and that's a pain in the ass for a very long time. But you can just see the value of the Maxim here, just holding him up. It was a really stupid loss to lose that squad of engineers to the pyres over there. I think if this was first person, you would have even seen me look at it. I just didn't retreat them for whatever reason. And another thing I did reasonably well in this game is constantly get back to my base, reinforce stuff in time, and keep it out in the open. But here, this engagement with the Maxim, of course I'm going to lose it in the end because he's got an armoured vehicle that can mortar it. However, look at all the stuff that I've just forced back to his base, and I've kept the fuel out of his possession the whole time, and I'm just starting to cap into this side of the map. So feeling really good about this. This is not how my early game against Wehrmacht usually goes whatsoever. Usually I'm getting pinned down by their machine guns. They'll be on my side of the map, on my cut-off, and I'll just be struggling in front of their machine gun, and not with any sort of presence of map controls, probably losing squads in some embarrassing or garbage way, one way or another. But this was a much better match in the early game. So of course he did get a fairly decent force off on me there, but I've gone back to base. I'm building my tier 3. It's 9 minutes, and I think the best players I see are able to get it out for get their T70 out for around 7-8 minutes. So I'm very behind on this. but it works well enough, I suppose. And again, like, just don't, as soon as your stuff gets hit by a machine gun, particularly if you're like right on the outer section of their arc of fire, don't necessarily retreat straight away, because you know, you can usually just crawl out. This is not a great example because I'm getting hit by the mortars and I was quite late to move them, but most of the time you can avoid the retreat there. So yeah, I've managed to get a fairly decent retreat over here, save these guys, and you can see just the amount of time. He's got 3 squads of grenadiers over there that just can't fight me while all of my forces are concentrated in the middle here, because I've capped all of his resources on that side of the map. So that's a really good, strong play, I think. So here I've kind of gone for that multi-prong attack again. I use the engineers to capture because I don't mind taking losses with them. It would have been nicer if they'd drawn the machine gun fire, but again, the Urass around with the conscripts just forces the MG off. This is quite a favourable map for Soviet early game, I think, because there's no buildings for the Wehrmacht to use. This all becomes a lot more difficult if you have to deal with the MG in a building, although that's why I went for the Molotovs early on, because they do actually allow you to deal with it in a building fairly quickly. But if they've got an MG in a building and you haven't got Molotovs, either, you know, you better have a sniper or a half track or something like that, because otherwise you're just going to have to avoid that part of the map. So yeah, I've taken back the middle VP, got my machine gun in situ. I should probably be moving these engineers, but it's all working fairly well. And now my little T-70's out, which is great. I mean, 11 minutes, it's pretty late, but what's he got to answer to it? He's spent a lot of early fuel on the mortar half track, and so he's just got the pack, which is reasonably easy to deal with if you know, support the T-70 with infantry, or you keep it away from the front lines and just use it to cap and harass his flanks, which on a map like this, which is very narrow, I think is the best thing for it. Now here, this was a huge blunder, and I think I might have actually won the game if I could have avoided this. This is terrible tank micro, and the reason why is I actually clicked on the mini-map. Just don't do that. Because, you know, they change their heading, they don't necessarily go the direction, particularly in a place like this where there's like 3 or 4 different routes he could use to get there. They don't do what you expect them to, so just micro your tank carefully. You know, that was like the culmination of all of my tech up to this point, so that gave him a massive leg up from, you know, where previously I pretty much had him on a headlock and was giving him a noogie. But anyway, the MG's, you know, paying for itself again. 9 kills, 2-star vet here, really nice. And just being careful, I think it was around this time that I realised the damage the mortar half track was doing to me. So every time I had an engagement, I would just move it to another little stand of trees or bit of cover, just so that they weren't sitting in a barrage. Because I don't think he had vision on me. I went for the Su-76 after. I had plenty of fuel banked up. Maybe I could have gone for a fast tech into my T-34. But I do like the Su-76 as a fallback if your T-70 doesn't work. Because, you know, it's got a lot of legs into the later game. It's a really good anti-tank asset, but also the mobile barrage ability from the Ziz gun built into it is really good. It's great for dislodging MGs, and I was hoping that I could use it because it's very accurate at long range. I was hoping I could use it to snipe his mortar half track, which is at 17 kills at this point. I mean, Wehrmacht mortars just super scary. So he's got his kind of pocket resources back here, which is nice. I had some NGs up in this side, and you'll just see like the effectiveness of buildings. You know, these Grens, obviously, normally they'd absolutely murder engineers, but getting in the building just allowed them to survive, take the damage and force them off, particularly as they were in flamethrower range. So yeah, I was managed to push ahead there, did what I wanted to do with the Su-76 and pop that mortar half track. That's a lot of pressure off me here. Could have microed these guards better, got them into cover behind this log, but pretty happy. You know, the PPSH conscript's just really, really strong. Able to push off the grenadiers, and you know the PPSHs will burn through the Grens at close range you know, they easily outclass the MG42 at close range, but you do have to get them into close range, and the MG42 does so much damage that actually getting them there can be a bit of a chore, so watch out for that. So I'll just speed things up a little bit. I don't want to spend ages, you know, showing you what's, you know, fairly mediocre gameplay in terms of, you know, the greater bit of the greater competitive scene. But we can see I'm in his side of the map. I've got fairly good map control and presence. I'm able to, you know, keep my engineers out here doing a bit of extra capping, and in the centre, I've got my infantry nicely spread. They're using cover, and the barrage plus Molotovs there is able to just neutralise his MG again. And in the meantime, my guys are able to sneak around the side and kill his pack crew, which is great because you don't want to let those guys get veterancy, otherwise, you know, they just become really, really strong throughout the whole game. And again, I've managed to force him off. Unfortunately, maybe I should have left those conscripts there. I think that was probably a misclick, because it would have been nice to keep them there and then capture his fuel off him again. I capped the VP here, which was nice because I got a really good period of drain against him, but I was kind of forced off by the pioneers with the flamethrower, because of course the MP40 at flamethrower range is much, much better than the engineers' rifles. And this here, I'll just pause. He built a fuel cache on this cutoff, which is, I mean, he's getting a lot of value because, of course, it stops him from being cut off from all of his resources over here. But also it means that he's massively boosted his fuel income. I think it makes it like 6 income, which is just below the +7 of the regular fuel income. And he'd actually done that twice. I didn't even realise he had the second one down here. I needed to, particularly with the amount of kind of control I had over this game, I really, really needed to kill these fuel caches earlier on. I was sort of aware of them, and I occasionally sent the flamethrower NGs or the PTRS guards to go and deal with them, but he kept me occupied enough in the centre that I was never able to deal with those, and you'll see it just gives him a huge, well, as you'd imagine, that much extra fuel just gives him a huge advantage throughout the game, which is, it got emotional. And yeah, so that's something I really need to realise, and especially because, you know, if he's invested in that, then there's no, you know, it's gonna have to come out of somewhere else. So if I'd have just microed a bit better or forced him off the mid, and or even just left an MG and the Su-76 in the mid and sent a couple of my squads of infantry around to deal with it, that would have been able to wipe out a huge investment from him and get rid of, you know, a long-term boon against him. So he gets a Panzer IV out. He starts to feel more comfortable in the mid because of the Panzer IV. He has a second mortar half-track, and you can see he starts to work some grenadiers onto my side of the map and start hitting at all of these supplies and also the victory point, which is just a total pain in the ass. And here, this late game, you can see where it's a pretty evenly matched game in terms of our skills so far. I start to crumble in the late game, just probably due to lack of experience, that I'm not microing as well, I'm not making as good decisions as I did, just because I've got more stuff to think about. So I start to make losses, and he's cut me off here, so this is looking pretty icky. On the plus side, I've got the 2 squads of engineers, always good for the late game, I think, because, you know, you can use them as fairly inexpensive cappers, and also they can repair your heavy tanks much more efficiently when there's 2 of them later in the game. And of course, like you see here, as long as I didn't commit to this fight, I've drawn 2 of his Gren squads off to undo the work of a single engineer squad. So that's pretty nice. And also, you know, so conscripts in green cover, you know, even with the PPSHs, do a pretty good job against the grenadiers here. And as he switches his fire, I can get close to them, use hit the dirt, and trade manpower really efficiently there. Worth noting, so in the middle he's got his P4, the mortar half-track, and the MG, and look at all the stuff I've got just sort of waiting here. I could have been a lot more aggressive, you know, I suppose because I'd taken losses in the centre before. I was just sort of waiting until all my pieces were, you know, in the one place where I definitely could have been poking and realised how flimsy this was, because really I would have only have needed, say, the conscript squad, the Maxim squad, and the Su-76 You know, conscripts could have drawn the MG fire, Maxim could have set up and put fire on it, and then the Su-76 could have forced off the mortar half-track or barraged the mortar. So if I'd have just poked and realised, or maybe even had a mortar and used the mortar flare ability, I could have realised how sort of flimsy this was and split my troops up to be, you know, dealing with this recap over here, or pressuring him somewhere else, or maybe even going for these fuel caches, which was, you know, the big problem throughout the game. And he played really well here using the P4. You know, it's relatively quick, and he was able to kill not only the engineers I had over here, but the entire vetted conscript squad. And just making losses like that, you know, the veterancy, it's easy enough to replace the infantry if you're playing relatively efficiently, but the veterancy is something you really can't replace, so you've got to be very careful. And I think if I'd have used my tactical map more, I would have been able to use that, but my gameplay's been very difficult for me to kind of force myself to use the tactical map more and more. But here we've got the guards in, got the Su-76, and just a tip there, I mean, I think most players will know this, but with his doctrine, he's got the Panzer Tactician, which allows him to use the smoke dischargers, which I don't know if they're actually modelled on this, the one in CoH2, but they use the smoke cloud, and that allows him to get away where I might have already killed him. But what I did there was use attack ground with the Su-76 and just fired at roughly behind the smoke cloud where I thought the P4 would be reversing, and I was actually able to hit it through the smoke there. So that's just a good tip. It does obviously take some actions per minute to kind of pull it off properly, but definitely a little hot tip for you there. So fairly sensible retreat here. I had a load of Grens in the middle. I didn't want to be fighting that. Lure them back into my machine gun is, you know, just absolutely hunky-dory. And of course, once the Grens are pinned down by the MG, you can run the conscripts in and they can absolutely clear them up. So in this time, I've gone to tier 4, and I went for my KV-1 because I already had the kind of anti-tank power of the Su-76 plus 2 squads of guards. What I wanted was something that I could kind of bull through the middle and not worry about it getting, you know, annihilated by his anti-tank gun or whatever else. And I also worth noting, I actually stole his anti-tank gun at one point in the middle there, which is a really nice take. But I think I should have retreated it back to base and got it on a 6-man crew, because then you get the Pak 40, which is, you know, great 75mm. Anti-tank gun, but you can actually put a 6-man crew on it, which makes it even more powerful in Soviet hands. I don't know about the accuracy stats on that, but got to take advantage of that. But yeah, so he's actually got a Tiger out at this point, and the only reason he will have been able to do that is because of these 2 fuel caches he's had. You know, he's got much, or say pretty much split the map equally with me, but he's getting 32 fuel a second, which is a whole 6 more than me. So it's almost like he's had an extra fuel point just sitting there working for him the entire game, and I haven't punished him for that at all. And I think really that's why I lost this game, that and obviously poor control, and spoiler alert, yes, I did lose. But you know, you can see the efficacy of the Su-76 and the KV-1 combo there. I was able to do about half damage. Oh, I had the pack working as well. Do about half damage on the Tiger and force the P4 off as well there, and hold on to the middle VP. That dive with the P4 was good because it caught me while I was moving the pack gun and sniped the Vet 3 Su-76, which is really, you know, that's a blow for sure. You know, because if I could have had that plus, you know, an Su-85 later, or, you know, this a veteran AT gun, then that would have, even a Tiger has to worry about that. So yeah, the Tiger, you know, I was surprised by that. I thought I had him more on the back foot, and you can see there I've tried to run the conscripts in to get the damaged engine with the AT bomb, but it wasn't going to happen. And also during that, when I first saw the Tiger during that engagement, I had a squad of conscripts in there, and I was worrying so much about my tanks. I forgot to retreat them and lost them there as well. And just losing veteran PPSH cons throughout the game was just a nightmare, because if we just look, I think he had the same squads of Grens pretty much the entire game. So this one's got 22 kills, 26 kills, and 26 kills. You know, these are the same Grens that he built. So it's reasons like that that he can afford to have these fuel caches built on the map, because he's not taking those squad wipes. Whereas, you know, I spent all of my manpower reasonably efficiently. You know, I wasn't floating out or anything like that. But he was able to afford, you know, that and more, because he wasn't taking a squad wipe. So just retreating, I mean, it's a simple skill, but being able to do it efficiently, really, really important. And likewise, same thing happened to the AT gun. You know, I'm kind of outgunned here. I was probably a bit too timid with my guards. Should have had them out there. Doesn't matter if they lose a few models, if they can button both of his tanks and stop the AT gun from dying, because veteran AT guns, again, really handy. And again, I'd lost the engineer squad earlier. Imagine if I had 2 engineer squads working on this, the KV-1 would be, you know, working much harder for me. So I bought out a Ziz gun, because, I mean, they're just great AT, and I think I kind of needed that. You know, particularly because I've lost the Su-76, and it's just a fuel-efficient way to get some more AT out on the field. Even though at this point I could have actually afforded an Su-85, so that's another point, is I could have, if I had been a bit quicker, got that out just a little bit quicker, which would have made a difference. Did well here to get some freshly built conscripts, you know, green conscripts over there capping his fuel. And the cool thing about conscripts, they're so flexible that actually when he sent this P4 over, if I'd have been a little bit more conscientious of it, I could have just, particularly as he backed it up to me, I could have just chucked an AT grenade at it and crippled its engine, and then it would have been out of the fight in the centre for ages. But yeah, and also not able to chase down those conscripts. And he said GG here. I don't know if that was a little bit, you know, like, oh, I've definitely won now because I've got my Tiger out, but the game does go on a lot longer. I think I gave a fairly good showing of myself. But here's a sort of critical moment for him. I drove my KV up to fight the P4. The Tiger comes up to intercept it, and then he massively overcommits into the face of the Su-76, the KV and the Ziz gun, and we trade the KV for the Tiger, which is a pretty good thing. You know, I come out of that 100 fuel richer than him, but it is still a loss, obviously. It would have been nice. I'll tell you what I should have done is smoke screened or something like that to keep the KV-1 alive, but never mind. And here, again, it's nice that I'm able to use the SU to pressure his mortar half-track. But again, see, because of those fuel caches, here's another Tiger out. And, you know, already my setup's good. Look, I've taken it to half health as soon as it's shown its face. But, you know, it's all just adding up. You can see he's starting to get these extremely vetted Grens around the corner, you know, able to just, pay... I suppose what it is he is able to pay more attention, because he's cooler under pressure or faster than me. He's able to pay more attention to what these Grens are doing on the edge of the map and use them to defeat my conscripts every time, whereas all of my actions are just going into the middle to kind of pull even with him, to, you know, take out his Tigers, to stop being overrun by the P4 and the Tiger. And also he did very well to keep this P4 alive. It got loads of kills. I mean, it's 22 kills already, and I don't think it dies for pretty much the rest of the game. So yeah, it's kind of just at this point where my inexperience is on show, and you know, I'm not making the right micro decisions and not able to keep control of the map and trade efficiently. But I learnt a lot from this. My early game is much better, and, you know, once you get past the early game, you can expose yourself to these situations more and more, and actually learn from them. So this will be kind of my next step in beating Wehrmacht. And also just the value of conscript AT grenades there. You know, it didn't do very much damage, but to damage the engine on a Tiger means that you can kind of try and secure the kill. You can slow it down to make sure it's participating in less engagements. It's just generally very handy. I'll tell you what else as well. One thing I noticed from this game is if you're doing a reverse action with a tank, make sure you put it far enough away, because otherwise they end up like doing a weird little spin on the spot and not reversing very efficiently. So watch out for that as well. Able to hold him off and trade really efficiently in the mid there, which is really nice. But he's still, again, you know, he's just controlling and using his Grens properly. A little bit of a misplay from him there with the 257 mortar half track, so to knock that out, which is nice because it's a pain in the arse. And the light artillery barrage was also able to kill his MG there, which is really nice. And I didn't feel like I'd kind of lost at this point, because I guess, you know, really I hadn't. But what was really hurting me was like Vet 1 conscripts, Vet 0 conscripts. You know, going up against these like Ubermensch Grenadier Terminators. They're just never going to trade efficiently and bring me home the victory, unfortunately. So it's just back and forth here, really. Again and again, you know, my micro's okay, but I'm not able to take control of the sides of the map again. I'm really, at this point, I think I was just getting almost like weary and just thinking, oh my god, if I can just hold the 2 VPs, if I can just hold the 2 VPs, hopefully I've given myself a big enough advantage into the late game that I can actually, you know, just win on VPs rather than having to actually beat his army. Worth noting as well, because of that huge fuel advantage, he gets 2 Panzerwerfers out, which, oh my god, is that a fucking pain in the arse. They were just pelting me the entire game and just bleeding my manpower even more. And, you know, because this map's so narrow and, you know, realistically attacking into those Terminator Grenadiers and the Tiger was never going to work with my current setup. They were just able to sit there, like, trolling me, blowing all my weapons crews to pieces. And so all of my veteran MGs, mortars, all that kind of stuff, the stuff that can't react quickly to the Panzerwerfer, was either getting bled and having to be retreated or just dying outright. So that was a pain in the ass. I don't think, you know, I'm not sure there's any way I could have really played against that. He just had more better stuff than me at this point. You know, it was really just that that was the high and low of it. I couldn't really beat it. You know, it wasn't a micro mistake. It was just the expression of the fact that he played more consistently longer than me, and I didn't do anything about these fuel caches as a result of it. And you know, that just allows him to get out everything that he needs in the situation and beat me. I mean, Minsk pocket like this, when it is a relatively close game, I often find it devolves into artillery, so perhaps having a little throwaway T-34 that I could have just raced round the side during one of the engagements to pop these 2 in the arse would have been a good idea, or maybe going for a long-ass flank against one of his, with one of my guard squads might have worked as well, but I think, you know, that was the central issue, was not that I wasn't dealing with him effectively, it's just that I didn't have enough good stuff out on the field to enable me to fight him and put me in a position where I can actually deal with him. Did fairly well, quite happy with my Su-78 micro. You know, I was able to keep it alive for quite a while, and I think it dies unfortunately here, and the P4 trades for it, which is a good trade for him, you know, because that was really the only thing really holding his Tiger off. And at this point I'm just kind of getting a bit more desperate. He's starting to, or has more than equalised the points on me, and my units are just starting to bleed all my veterans. He's going the way of the dinosaurs, and I'm starting to, you know, just feel like I've lost control of the game, which is frustrating after the early game, but never mind. I think that's really all there is to say about this one. There was a pretty satisfying moment later on. I think it's just around now. He had, yeah, you can see the Panzerwerfers there. I mean, how many kills have they got between them? 20 kills between them. Huge pain in the ass. And wiping out my AT guns and stuff like that. There was a really satisfying moment just before the end, which I'll try and close out on, where, yeah, I think roughly here, I took out another Tiger, which was good, with my second Su-85, and thought, you know, to myself, okay, we're in a good position. The Tiger's dead, the P4's dead. How much more can he have? Just kidding. Tiger number 3. You know, at least I'm not falling over at the first Tiger like I was falling over at the first machine gun in the early game previously. But total nightmare. And I think when I saw the third one and it was just able to take out my KV, I thought, yeah, okay, this is about game. Yeah, and it was able to take out the Su-85. I thought, you know, he hasn't beat me yet on VPs, but he's beat me because there's no way that 3 conscripts are going to make it back. So yeah, it was good early game, good learnings from it, but I took a lot away about how to play better in the late game, and you know, the critical importance of infantry preservation and just having a better idea of what's going on the map. And I think the only way I'm going to get that is by playing with the tactical map open more in the late game, because it's the best way to get an idea of, you know, what's where and what it's doing, and just getting quick retreats off and things like that. So that's something I'm just going to have to drill myself into, even though it's a really nasty habit to have to change. Anyway, guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of Cyka to Stalin. I've been definitely enjoying working my way up the ranks, and hopefully we'll be able to show you some more progress next time. Give me a comment if there's any questions you want me to answer, or stuff that you want me to try and have a look at, you know, work against particular strategies or work with particular units who you want to see in the next video. Let me know. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Until next time.